This is the story of Bob and the Socks, a tale of a long trek through 110-degree heat in the search of, well, you decide, maybe a small miracle. Bob loved to venture out into the desert. He did it all the time. He would drive for miles and miles. He would eventually stop to stretch and work out the kinks. This is exactly what Bob was doing on this particular day. He got out for a little while and wandered around and stretched and just tried to relax from being beaten up on a pretty rough road. When Bob got back in his truck and decided it was time to move on, he discovered he had a problem. The truck wouldn't start. Darn. I'm sure that's an exact quote. Bob got out again to check under the hood and see what he could see. Bob had tried everything he could, but he was afraid it was the starter, and it turned out that he was correct. There was no way he was going to get that truck to start. Well, as sad as this really is, this is the beginning of our adventure.
Okay, this one's for Gabby.
Bob knew his only choice was a long hike that he estimated was about 10 miles away. Bob hadn't really prepared for a hike. He'd worn cowboy boots with some thin dress socks underneath. He realized he was going to have a problem, but he knew he didn't have much choice. So, Bob grabbed a jug of water and set off on a long hike. Good luck, Bob. The desert has its own incredible beauty, but when you realize you may have at least 10 miles to walk before you get help, it looks awfully foreboding. Nothing as far as he could see.
Someday you wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind. Be where trouble melts.
So Bob, being a very determined fellow, set right out. Can you imagine walking for 10 hours in 110-degree heat? Thank goodness he had his water with him. Finally, after walking for almost 7 hours, he said a little prayer. He said, "You know, Lord, I could certainly use a nice, thick pair of socks." His feet were pretty blistered and raw by this time. Not to mention the fact that he was totally exhausted. Just a little prayer, maybe.
Well, I see skies of blue and I see clouds of white.
Bob couldn't believe his eyes. Who would leave a pair of socks that looked like they were recently laundered out in the middle of the desert, exactly where he needed them? Bob looked around to see if he could find his benefactor.
So pretty in the sky.
When he couldn't find anybody in the immediate area, he sat down and said a little thanks, and, well, he put on his new socks. Now, who do you think would leave a pair of socks in the middle of the desert? Pretty incredible. His feet were pretty sore, but the new socks felt wonderful.
Someday I wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind.
And Bob felt that, well, if I'm going to get this kind of help, I'm going to make it all the way.
Like a lemon drops high above the chimney top, that's where you find.
So with a new spirit, Bob set off. Don't worry about the old socks. Bob is very protective of the desert, and as soon as he got his truck up and running, he went back and picked up the old socks. But for now, he was a happy man, setting off on the remainder of his journey, very thankful that his adventure was coming to an end. Let's just see how thankful Bob was. Good man.